Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the VAK Indian History Podcast. I'm Utkarsh.
Namaste, Sumedha, as usual. Very happy to see you.
Yes, and in case you're wondering why there's a mic in front of me, I'm trying something different. I have not been entirely satisfied with how my voice sounds. You should be. So we're going to try something different. But
All right.
anyway, some to get into this week's topic, this is something that has been surrounding me for the last week. Because here in Singapore, as in many parts of Asia, this is when you have the Lunar New Year, it's the Chinese New Year, the Vietnamese New Year, New Year in Korea. There are many different names for it. It's been all of last week. It basically started last Monday, and it's been what today's Wednesday, so it's been about 10 days, and they actually counted day by day from then. And what I wanted
So,
to
how
ask is,
long is it? How many days is
okay,
it?
so last
Uh,
Monday was the so before the we'll get into the details, but basically was the eve of the New Year last Monday. And then the first 10 days, they kind of each day has a certain significance. So today is like day 8 or day 9 or something like that, basically.
okay.
Yeah. So, as with many things that we've discussed on this podcast, we found an Indian connection. We found an Indian connection with the Hungry Ghost Festival, which is quite popular here. We found an Indian connection, of course, with martial arts, right? Which was the most interesting story of Bodhidharma.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and I wanted to know, this is such a big part of the Chinese culture. It's an ancient thing. It is kind of spread across cultures. It's not just China, Vietnam, Korea, as I mentioned. So I wondered if there was an Indian connection here as well. And that was the purpose of this episode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you why my understanding of it, and I want you to tell me what you take away, right? And we haven't done this. We deliberately kept this so that you can get it directly on camera. I haven't had a pre-discussion to tell you what to expect. Okay. So this is how it begins. How it begins is
So,
that
don't give me any unpleasant surprises,
n-
Utkarsh.
no, none planned, none planned. Though there are a few movies about it I can recommend you to watch. Not all of them are pleasant. Some are quite lame. But anyways,
No,
um,
I wouldn't mind that actually. I wouldn't mind that at all. Maybe at the end, give us a
at the
movie
end,
recommendation on this, whichever
no, no,
one
it
you
was
think
it
is
was a
best.
Singaporean movie recommendation, and it's Singapore's most famous director, who I had crossed paths with because this is in a previous role for something else. So there's a whole connection there. But yeah, it's a very funny. It's supposed to be a funny movie, but you could find it a little bit extra funny. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll tell you my understanding, right? So there are first let's begin with what the years are, because you have 12 years, 12 different years. This year is going to be the year of the horse, but you have year of the rabbit, year of the tiger, year of the dragon. There are like 12 animals that form the Chinese zodiac. So that's the first thing. FYI, I am year of the tiger. And each of those animals have a element so you can be a fire tiger, a paper tiger. Is it paper or is it earth tiger, wind? So
Earth. Yeah.
they've got 4 or 5 elements linked to it.
Utkarsh, it is the Indian Panch Mahabhut.
So
So,
already we are seeing something interesting coming there.
yes, yes.
And how it plays out is as follows, right? So I mentioned the eve of the New Year's, which was last Monday. You have something which is a big part of the culture. It's called the reunion dinner. So the idea is that everybody, and this happens in China also, by the way. It's China. They have a bigger holiday. They have a 7-day holiday behind this. The idea is that everybody, no matter where you are, you're supposed to return home to whoever is the patriarch or whatever is the main household. Return there and have a dinner. And so because of that, for example, here in Singapore and Malaysia, the roads, or rather the border from Singapore to Malaysia, which is the world's most busy border crossing. Few million people go across every day because it's essentially people come in for to work for the day, then they go back to Malaysia. But the week leading up to Chinese New Year is basically clogged from morning to night because so many people are going back for this particular thing. So it's a big thing over there. And basically, that entire week you avoid driving unless you have to visit folks, because people are generally on the second day of the New Year. This is the third day. They're supposed to go around and go and meet every family member, basically. And then the other interesting thing with all of this is that depending on which year you were born in, each year has a certain significance. So, for example, if you are a year of the uh, rat, for example, year of the horse is not great for you. Apparently, rat and horse don't entirely get along. So you have all of these interesting predictions. Again, going back to a Jyotish episode, a little
Mm.
bit of that entire thing over here. So yeah, so this is what I have for you. It's massive over here. We have holidays here for 2 days public holiday, but in China it's longer. Each year is different. Each has a different element. It's about getting together. It's about yeah. That's basically what happens.
Yeah. So again, a lot to unpack. And the interesting thing about what you're saying is that I will tell you what my research has thrown up as we go through this episode, and we will find that there is a lot of India-China connection in this, as there is in everything else. So, Utkarsh, Chinese civilization has somehow been seen as a very isolationist one, where they're the Middle Kingdom and they are surrounded by natural features of the land like mountains and deserts, etc. The Taklamakan Desert, the Himalaya mountains, so that they were isolated. Nothing could actually be further from the truth. And I will request people who are listening to this, let go of some of the things that they may think they know about India-China interaction, that it started in the first millennium. And it started with the inauguration of the Silk Route. The Silk Route is super popular, super important. We will see as we go along that it goes back much before that. Utkarsh, we've done 2 or 3 episodes which are very pertinent to this. You mentioned the Jyotish episode. Then remember the one we did on calendars, on how calendars are actually made. And then we tried to explain a lot of the technical details of how timekeeping is done, how the calendar is kept, etc., so that uh, you would get a good idea about. We were doing it on the Gregorian New Year, if I remember, and the differences. So, timekeeping and calendar is a hallmark of any civilization because you have to keep track of what's happening. You have to keep track of the agricultural cycle, social, religious, cultural moments, everything. And then, as you just explained in the last 5 minutes, there's a lot of social, cultural, and familial stuff involved in all this. So, if I have to answer in one word, are there any Indian connections are there Indian connections to the Chinese naming of the 12 years, the Chinese way of keeping time? Yes, indeed, there are. And as usual, I would like to go, of course, very far back. So not only will I go to the first millennium, but I will go back to the first millennium before the Common Era. And there are some things which I keep pointing out. The word globalization is supposed to be a new one. But can it be that we were globalized far before anybody actually thought of that word? And if we were, can it be that two big civilizations like the Indian one and the Chinese one would not know of each other? Do you remember the one we did on big global empires? We had taken Seleucus and we had taken Chandragupta
Yes. Yes.
because that was a period of the warring states in China and it had not emerged. No one state had emerged as the leader, and the entire country had not found its formation by then. But how do you think it is if we go back to the warring states period? Because that is just prior to the actual way in which the first empire of China was established. And if we can take our uh, links or connections back to then we will see how old they are. Or do you think it's a little too much, too boring?
No, I
And you
think
want
so.
me to
The
jump straight
connection,
in?
the two parts to this. One is the connections between India and China. So I think we can talk briefly about it. Uh, you know, uh, just to establish really what they were and what is the proof that we have for them. Like we've talked about this in the Bodhidharma episode as well, right? There's that cave which used to be
Mhm.
I believe used to be a kind of a spot to stop in between. And then I think for me, the more interesting thing is investigating some of those connections. So you've talked about the elements. So let's talk about that. What I'll also do is I'll pull up what I know from the that side, and we can talk about that. So I'm just very curious about all of those concepts. How
Okay.
and also
So,
the other question that I had is what is particular about this particular time period? So we know the New Year is different, right? We talked about this in the Gregorian calendar, and it's different. The Indian New Year is different. So when is the Indian New Year? When is the Chinese New Year? Why is it different? This is also lunar calendar. So kind of little bit of exploring that as well.
No, but there is a lunar calendar and there's a lunisolar calendar. And the
Okay.
problem with not having very exact not knowing the exact time which one year is, whether it's 365 or 364, and how to adjust for the
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
365 one-fourth. And then there's also the concept of a samvatsar or a Jupiter and Saturn year. So I think I'll start with that because that will tell you where
Okay. Hmm.
this
Hmm.
whole thing begins with.
All right.
So,
Sounds good.
yeah, so the calendar, we know that it depends on, or timekeeping depends on looking at the sky and understanding the movements of different uh, constellations, etc., etc. So, how are they actually thought of? We can see the stars, but there is something called nakshatra in Sanskrit, and it's called Shiv in Chinese. So what is this? Remember, for people who are a little confused about this, go back to our Gregorian calendar episode where we have explained it in detail. Right now, I'll only tell you that nakshatras are regions in space, and they are 27 in number. They are also 27 in number in China. There was a certain work which is called the Shardul Karnavadan. This is a Buddhist text. This is a Buddhist text which was translated in the second century by somebody called Nanshigao, and it is called the Matanga Sutra. From here, a lot of the ways in which the 27 nakshatras are looked at in Bharat and the 27 nakshatras are looked at in China, they found their connections. So, a few other things which traveled a little later in the 7th, 8th century are the Navagrahas, that is not the 9 planets, but the Navagrahas. Remember, again, we explained that grahas are different from planets. And the
Yes. Yes.
7 day week, because before that,
Yeah.
China
Yeah.
had a 10-day week, which is why probably, Utkarsh, you have these 10-day celebrations.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yes.
10-day
So
week.
before, yes,
Interesting.
but
Okay.
well, this traveled 2000 years ago, so it's okay
So
if
I
you don't
don't
know it.
think even if I speak to my Chinese friends, maybe they know about it. That there's a
Yeah,
10-day week.
probably not because this is really, really old. But
Okay.
then remember, I'm talking about the first millennium of the Common
Hmm.
Era and the
Yeah.
first millennium of the before the Common Era.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you can always ask me because if anyone opens Wikipedia or looks at what are the connections between India and China, what they'll talk about is the way in which these connections were only established once the Silk Road was opened up. And the person who is very famous for this, Zhang Jian, he is the person who opened up the Silk Road, which is somewhere around the turn of the first century, first millennium before the
Hmm.
Common Era. So
Hmm.
he is a famous man. And I'm going to talk a lot about him because some of the histories which have been written about him give
Hmm.
us so much information about India-China contacts in the first millennium BC that we really actually cannot ignore them. So, Utkarsh, if you look at Wikipedia, if you look at normal mainstream history, what they'll say is that there were no connections between India and China till the first millennium of the Common Era, and then it was the Silk Road opened up and there was the spread of Buddhism. However, there is another thing which speaks the truth, and those are material goods. That is material culture. So, if we find Chinese silk mentioned in the Arthashastra, which is called Chin Patti, and Chin, remember, where do we get Chin from? We get it from one of the warring states, which was called Chin. There
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
Zhao, Chin, so many others, and Chin was the
Hmm.
main one.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
this is from where we get Chin Patti. So we find Indian potash glasses in Warring State tombs. We find Indian glass beads in Warring State tombs. We find carnelian and Burmese jade artifacts, not Chinese jade, Burmese jadeite artifacts. So
Burmese
how
jade.
come?
Okay.
Yes,
Hmm.
and this is something which I also found very interesting. Burmese jade colors are a little different. You
Hmm.
also have purple, and you do of course have the green. And this Burmese jadeite is different from Chinese jade. And Burmese jadeite was very, very popular in this period. many artifacts have been found. So doesn't it stand to reason that there had to be contacts? Otherwise, how did you find all these things? And Indian Ocean coddies, you know what coddies are? These are seashells.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you have clay pots, huge, not pots, drums, huge drums of cowrie shells found in these tombs. So how did we find them? Fourth, fifth century BCE
Hmm. Hmm.
during the Warring States period, if there was no connection between the two. So, normally, if you say that the Tibetan Plateau, the Taklamakan Desert, jungles of Southeast Asia were an impediment till Zhangxian opened the Silk Road in the second century BCE, all these things militate against that. Now, let us read what Zhangxian himself found. So, there are certain dynastic histories which
Hmm.
are called Shijis,
And
and
just to just I don't know if you mentioned it, but how do we? What is the timing?
so Shang Jian he lived in the second century before the Common Era. And he
Okay.
was sent by the Chinese emperor of the time to find
Hmm.
out all about trade routes. So if I want to make a really, really bad westernized kind of statement, I can say he was the Columbus of his time. But I do not want to say that, and please do not put that on the record, so to speak. I do not want to say that at all because this
Hmm.
was far earlier and the purposes were very different. The
And
purpose was
also,
basically trade.
I know that again, I have a very, very superficial understanding, but my understanding is that the dominant culture in China is the Han Chinese, which wasn't traditionally all of China; it was a certain portion of China. So at that
But
point in
that's
time,
a little later. That's
that's much
later.
later, right? So exactly.
That's
So
much
my
later.
point goes to you know, nation state is a very we've talked about this. It's a very modern idea. So civilizationally, what was the center of gravity of what we consider China at that time period?
So
What area? Yeah,
again, the Qin warring state was
the
the
Qin
one
warring
which
state. Okay,
that was the one which finally managed to kind of
okay,
assert itself. So you can say that it would have been in what we now know as Central China.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So why do I talk about Zhang Jian so much? So Zhang Jian went to Bactria, and where is Bactria? Bactria is beyond Afghanistan. When he went there, he found Chinese textiles from Sichuan and bamboo from Xiongdu being sold in Bactria. And remember, he had gone to open up the trade routes. There were no official trade routes mentioned in the Chinese records between China and Bactria at this point of time. When you think of China and Bactria, think of all the parts of the world that they are traversing. And I'll show you a map just now. So when he went there, he found Chinese textiles and bamboo, and he asked the merchants, where did you get them? So he said he was told that it came from Shendu. What is Shendu but India? Where does Shendu come from? It comes from the Sindhu. So what
Shendu.
this Shendu,
Hmm.
yes,
Hmm.
that was the old Chinese name for India, which came from the Sindhu. So you see,
Interestingly, if you speak to someone from mainland China now, especially one who doesn't speak much English, they'll say Indu.
uh,
India, Indu.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Indu, Shindu, Shendu,
Hmm.
something like
Hmm.
that. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
absolutely. And later, when the Hans annexed Yunnan, which is, say, the southwestern part of China as we know it,
Yeah.
yes, southwestern part, they found that there were old established communities of merchants and ascetics from Shendu living over there.
Ah.
So, second
These
century
are well before
BCE,
Bodhidharma, right? Bodhidharma was one
so
famous,
much, 800
much, much.
years before,
Exactly.
800, 900 years before Bodhidharma.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there are also many stories of Buddhist monks arriving during the Mauryan period. Now, in his inscriptions that Ashok has scattered around, he does not mention any of the Qin Zhao, etc. at all. So he did not think of them as an established enough place for him to send any missionaries, Buddhist missionaries. However, there were trade routes. Buddhist ascetics and Hindu ascetics and everyone did travel around them. So this is something that you can call a kind of shadow trade route.
Hmm.
Neither the Mauryan Empire nor the Chinese Empire really controlled this entire trade route between the Mauryans and the warring
Hmm.
states.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it existed, which we know because of the actual material things which have been found and because
Hmm.
of this mention of Zhanjiang in Bactria. So there was a kind of pre-Silk Road globalization. So therefore, the calendar and timekeeping traditions and these ideas of China could very easily have been influenced by all these people who arrived from there. Now,
Hmm.
Utkarsh, I've said all this, and would you like to see a kind of pictorial representation of the map?
Sure, but I want to ask us another question, right? So,
Yes.
which for me is a little bit of the missing element, or maybe this happens later. When we talk about martial arts, so because you mentioned, right, that the whole idea of the five elements, right? Chinese, the five elements that you have, which were the water, metal, earth, fire, wood, have some connection
Mm,
to the whole Indian idea. When it comes to martial arts, I think I'm very, very clear that you have a protagonist who goes, he creates what is a center of learning in a way, which is the
mm,
Shaolin temple, and then things kind of spread from there. That becomes like the you know that becomes kind of the prime mover for this to
mm,
happen.
mm.
So what is because people are trading, it's a fair enough thing, but just because you're having trade, it's not sufficient enough to dramatically impact the culture of two separate civilizations, right? So what
Patience, Utkarsh,
you will have,
patience. We
okay,
shall
okay, so that's
also
you.
arrive at this answer.
Okay, so you got where I'm coming from, right? Okay, cool.
Ah,
That was my
yes,
question. Yeah.
yes, yes. How was critical mass achieved?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you can get ideas and these ideas were incorporated, although Utkarsh, I have already mentioned a very very important Buddhist astronomical text, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Shardul Karnavadan, and
Hmm.
this person called Anshigao. So this was one the earliest most important impact on Chinese astronomical traditions, but there is much more which I will tell you. First, I
Okay.
do want to show you
Hmm.
uh, a shadow trade route, which I have made myself. You will not find it in any history books. I have made it on the basis of evidence from the
So we can
Arthashastra.
truly say this is a world exclusive.
Absolutely world exclusive.
You saw
So
it here first.
these are from this is from Chinese sources as well as Indian sources, and trading as it happened in the space between China and India and with all other kingdoms, smaller kingdoms which were there. So let me try and share it with you, and I will give you a bit of an explanation also. So do we see the world map?
We see the map, or we see this map. Well, it's a map of India and China. That's what you mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. India's
Yeah.
Asia, a
Yeah.
bit of Asia. Sorry, not world, but Asia.
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to start from Sichuan or Chengdu, which is
Hmm.
right here in China. And this is what the shadow trade route was like. Where would it have gone? And how have I made this, or how has this been made? This has been made following the material goods from India which have been found. So
Hmm.
these are the places where they have been found. So they
Hmm.
go from Chengdu to Yunnan. This is the Yunnan corridor. Then
Hmm.
they go to the Salween and Mekong rivers. Then they go to Burma, the Irrawaddy Basin. Then they or through the Arakan Mountains. The Arakan Mountains are here, and then they go to this pass, and then they reach so many places. This is all Magad. Okay, this is all Patliputra, and then they reach Takshila.
Hmm.
What I notice is that since this was made using AI, the names are wrong. See, this is not Upper Burma. Okay, this
By
this
the
is
way,
wrong.
what Takshila is what? I mean, I know Takshila, but what is it today? How would you think
Takshila
of it
is
today?
Takshila in Pakistan.
Okay, it's still called Takshila.
Yes,
Okay.
it's still called Takshila. Now, this was something which was to show you the
Hmm.
shadow trade routes. I can also show you a little bit. Once more, I will show you something which we keep sharing every time. which
Hmm.
is something which is more academic. This Tansen Sen, who is actually a Singaporean, Utkarsh. Maybe we can get him for our podcast sometime. He does a
Okay.
lot of work on India-China relations.
Mm-hmm.
And he has written many books on India-China relations. So, wait, I'm not able to. Again, I just want to share a particular map,
Mm-hmm.
and this is taking me some time. So again, you can see this. This is actually more of a world map than the last one was.
Yeah.
So those intersecting circles are the different trade areas which intersected with each other. And so you see that a trade area from China intersected with that of India, intersected with that of Africa. The whole point of all this is that there were routes through which information from India could go to China. There is yet another route. This is one. These are mostly, sea routes. There's another one which we have talked about in our Bodhidharma episode, which is going up from here to Central Asia, Dunhuang, and then to China. Remember, we've talked about it in our Bodhidharma episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So all these maps were, and all these, a lot of this geographical information was just to give you evidence that there are solid links between China and India much before we had thought of them. So now shall we go on to the Chinese year names and cycles?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
all what I'm going to tell you is there's going to be Mauryan era evidence, Arthashastra evidence, Han Dynasty histories, which are called Shiji, Tang era astronomical treatises, etc. All these other sources. So again, let's move a little bit from lunisolar and lunar years to another
Hmm.
to two big planets. That is called Jupiter and Saturn. So for India, Jupiter or Brihaspati is another very convenient planet for a great cycle. Why is that? Because it takes about 11.86, that is 12 years, to move around the
Hmm.
sun. So that gives a great big cycle.
Sorry, say that again. It takes 11.68 years for Jupiter to move around the
11.86 years to go
86,
around the sun.
which kind of corresponds to the 12-year cycle that we're thinking of.
Exactly. That is
Hmm.
where it comes from. That is actually where it comes from. And we also have Saturn. Saturn takes 30 years.
Okay.
So if you kind of take the lowest common multiple of that, that is 60. So there is another cycle which is the 60-year cycle.
Yeah, yeah, because you
Both.
have five elements, so the elements repeat after. So if
Mm,
I am a fire tiger, which we'll get into, the previous fire tiger came 60 years before me
mm.
because
So
there are
you
five
see,
elements.
there is a 12-year cycle and there is a 60-year cycle. The 12-year cycle comes from Jupiter, and
Yeah.
the 60-year cycle comes because Jupiter and Saturn are put together. And the years, the 12 years, that comes from the lunisolar or lunar cycle. So you
Oh.
see how many different solar events in the sky are being
Yeah.
put together.
Okay.
So Jupiter is called Brihaspati in
Hmm.
Sanskrit, and it
Hmm.
is called Suishing in Chinese, and it's which actually translates as the ear star. That's what it's called.
Okay.
These 60 years also have names, Utkarsh. These 60 years have names in Sanskrit. They start with Prabhav, Vibhav, and obviously I will not go and tell you the 60 names, but they end with Akshay. All of them have specific connections and links with all the deities in
Okay.
the Hindu pantheon.
Okay.
Now, you see there it is 11.86.
Hmm.
So it's not 12. So
Yeah.
what to do about that little
Yeah.
small
Irritating
difference?
0.14.
Yes. So the Chinese invented a fictitious Jupiter and called it Tai Sui. And they gave
Okay.
it a very imperial spirit and everything. And this fictitious Jupiter moved in such a way that it made the whole thing come together. It was
Okay.
not real, it was
Okay.
fictitious. Okay. So this
Okay.
is a kind of shadow Jupiter. The
Hmm.
60-year cycle in the Chinese system is called the Ganzi cycle. So you
Okay.
have 12. and you have 60. Now, this suggests that this Baraspatya model was adapted by the Chinese at a very early stage. And that early
Hmm.
stage would be in the first millennium before the Common Era. So you have, again, if you want to know evidence for this, there are certain astronomical classical texts in Chinese. One is called the Arya, 3rd century BCE. Another
Hmm.
is the Shiji, which is the 1st century BCE.
Hmm.
And in these classical texts, the years of the Jupiter cycle are given names which correspond to Sanskrit. Okay. So it is from here that we know all this stuff about how the Bharaspatya cycle or Jupiter cycle has been adapted. Now, I am not going to go into all the names, but I'll give you some very important examples. First evidence that it has come from India is that if you look at the meaning in Chinese, it is semantic nonsense. It means nothing else, nothing at all. Two, in the Chinese system, foundational concepts are given monosyllabic names. These are polysyllabic concepts. These are polysyllabic names. So they are very likely to have come from somewhere else.
Okay.
And the first one, the first year of the Jupiter cycle is called Swati.
Okay.
And what is it called in Chinese? It's called Shetige. And there's been a lot of discussion on Shetige, and it has been finally derived from Swati. Then other examples are there is something called Kumbh, which becomes Kundun. There is
Hmm.
something called Dundubhi, which becomes Dunzang. So there are too many correspondences if you
Hmm.
actually look at the names. But the most important thing that most historians or most academics emphasize is that they mean nothing in Chinese.
Okay.
So they are obviously taken from somewhere else. And now we will come to the thing that we will find most interesting. That is the Chinese zodiac. This,
Hmm.
okay. So you have
Yes.
so many of these years. There are 12 of them. There are
Yep.
some very cute stories
Yeah.
about these. That, Lord Buddha called all the animals to come in a race. And the ones who would win would be the ones after whom these years would be named. So these are
Hmm.
the animals who won. Another story is that he invited a number of animals, but only these came. So
Sorry, the
therefore,
foundational story has Lord Buddha in it.
of course, of
That
course.
already is interesting. It's a clue in some
Let me tell
ways.
you something even more interesting. So these animals, these ears, come from a very specific text which
Hmm.
exists today. It is
Hmm.
called the Mahasannipat Sutra. In Chinese, it is called Daijing. In the
Hmm.
Chandra Garbha chapter of this
Hmm.
particular sutra
Hmm.
is the whole concept of the 12 years, the names, etc., explained. So you don't have to guess or think or conjecture. Utkarsh, it's there.
Okay.
It is from the Chandra Garbha chapter of the Mahasannipat Sutra, which is called the Daijing. When
Hmm.
was this translated into Chinese? It was translated in the 6th century by a person called Narendra Yashas, who lived between 517 and 589 CE.
Hmm.
So, can I get any more specific than that? I don't think so.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
this whole concept of Chinese naming of years is a Buddhist one. And if
Okay.
you look at all the other countries which have this, you mentioned Vietnam, Singapore is, of course, there, Malaysia, Indonesia,
Hmm.
Mongolia,
Hmm.
Korea,
Hmm.
all of them draw this from the uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
Buddhist centers or Buddhist sources.
Hmm.
So the idea in the Mahasannipat Sutra does not talk of the race or of Lord Buddha calling them. It is much more serious. It says that these 12 animals were called to teach all sentient beings the ways of Lord Buddha in all 12 directions. So
Okay.
therefore they are important. The
Why
rest
the
of it,
12
I think, is
directions?
that I think Utkarsh merits an entire episode to itself.
Okay, so we'll
So
that
mark
will be a future
this.
episode.
Yes, mark this. We will do it about why there are 12 directions.
Okay.
Now these 12 animals. So let me just show you. This is one list, and I have made a list somewhere. So let me show you that list because it will help me to make another point, which I'm going to make,
Hmm.
which will tell us about why we can say that these names are borrowed. So these are the names of the 12 years which we just saw: rat,
Hmm.
ox,
Hmm.
lion, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey,
Hmm.
bird, dog, pig.
Bird.
Okay?
No, rooster. Rooster. It's the year of the rooster.
Okay. Okay.
I know this
Rooster.
because this was the first Chinese New Year celebration I went to, 2005 in
Okay.
Chinatown in
Yes.
Singapore.
So, Utkarsh, this is the original list.
Okay, okay.
And there have been many changes in this. So, first thing, can you
Hmm.
see that the third one is lion?
Ah, yeah.
And
Actually,
there is no
why didn't
lion.
I notice that?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's my year also. Lion
yeah.
and tiger. Yes.
Yeah. So, because there are no lions in China, therefore,
Hmm.
it was changed to tiger, which
So
is
you're telling me
actually,
my year has been always been a lie. I'm not really a tiger.
yes,
Oh my God.
yes, you're actually a lion, not a tiger.
Hmm. Okay.
Then look at the dragon. So the dragon was originally the cobra or the nag, but there is no cobra in China, and
But
that
there's a
obviously
snake.
became long.
There's a
So the
snake.
cobra is different from snake.
In what
The co-
sense?
in the biological sense,
Huh?
a cobra is a special type of snake in actual fact, and it's a special type of snake. And what I should say is that theologically speaking, the cobra is very different from snake because the cobra is that which upholds the entire world. It's on his head that the entire creation is
This
actually
is the that you're
done.
getting into. You're getting
Indian
into
Indian theology.
Indian theology. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
that is Sheshnag, cobra.
Sheshnag, right? Anand,
Hmm.
am I not mistaken? Okay.
Yeah.
No, no. Okay. So that's theology, but okay, got it. So there are snakes that, for the purposes of this discussion, there are snakes, and then cobra is a different category.
Yes, for the
Okay.
purposes of the names of the 12 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Okay.
that was changed into the dragon because the dragon is important for Chinese theology.
S- So this is very interesting because, and this becomes a bigger discussion, but since we're talking about dragons and Nag and everything, uh,
Utkarsh,
the
we
I
should do an episode on dragons and Nag.
actually let's reserve it for that episode.
Yes,
Yes, for
yeah.
dragons and Nag. Okay, cool.
Yes,
Because
we
we have
should
the
do
12
one.
directions and then we have the dragon and Nag. These are two episode
Yeah,
ideas already.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So,
Okay.
this is how, I don't know if you remember our chess discussion and the way in which the chess pieces were changed in China and the way in which the names were changed in China. So, they were
Hmm.
changed so that it was easier for the Chinese to enunciate them. And there
Hmm.
were some things which were not there in China, which were there in India. So, all
Hmm.
those changes happened. It's a similar thing happening here. What does it
Hmm.
show? It shows the adaptation of ideas which have come from somewhere else
Hmm.
into the warp and weft of their own culture
Hmm. Hmm.
so that they could fully and completely own it. And
Hmm.
remember that it is the Mahasannipat Sutra, it is an astronomical treatise which
Yep.
had a lot of things which were incorporated into Chinese astronomical understanding.
Since you're
By
talking
the
about,
way,
yeah, sorry, go finish, then I'll ask the question.
so I was only going to tell you that 12 this set of 12
Yeah.
does not remain immutable when it goes to other countries. This is the original set of 12. I told you the changes in China. There have been also changes in Vietnam. In
Hmm. Hmm.
Vietnam, the year of the rabbit becomes the year of the cat, and that's a phonological change because I
Okay.
believe the words for rabbit and cat they sound similar.
I
In
understand.
Nepal, the ox becomes the cow, rabbit becomes the cat, dragon becomes eagle, pig becomes deer, and you've
Hmm.
already told me that the bird or the garud has become a rooster.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So these adaptations will keep happening whenever
Hmm.
any culture is assimilating something which has come from somewhere else. but
Hmm.
no culture uses it without changing
But
it
why
for
don't we
its
have names of
own.
the years as we think of when we think of the like? Okay, the years, the Chinese years, and their names, and they are very popular in Chinese culture. Every Chinese person knows it. I think in India we don't think of the years as the
No,
link to a particular.
no, 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 not at all. And that's probably a cultural thing, Utkarsh. And that's also probably a result of the fact that the ideas of Buddhism more or less died out after the 10th, 11th century in India.
Okay.
And today, most of the Buddhists that you will see in India are new Buddhists.
Hmm.
There are no original Buddhists left. They were
Hmm.
all wiped out in the Islamic invasion in the 10th, 11th century. All the monks and monasteries were wiped out. Just think,
Hmm.
that Nalanda burnt for months.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
many monasteries were wiped out. So Buddhism was kind of dead in its own place of birth for a good number
Hmm.
of years. And
Hmm.
today it
Hmm.
is only new Buddhists there,
So linking
which
this, so
is
this idea
why,
of
Utkarsh,
this idea of each year having linkage to an animal or whatever is a Buddhist idea.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So then this is a good segue into the question I was about to ask you, right? So when we did the Jyotish episode, the time that you're born is so just to recap for those of you who haven't seen it, fundamentally the idea of consciousness being rudimentary versus emergent is important. And the whole idea of Jyotish is that the position and the planets have a certain impact on your life and your consciousness, basically on you. Right. And it all depends on when, also, it depends on when you were born, what was the position of the planets, and how they will be at any point in time. It's a predictive framework. Now, the question is under this framework, my understanding of it, and it's a big part of all the fortune telling or feng shui or whatever, all the discussions that we have over here, is that people born in certain years, if you're born in year of the tiger, or you're born in year of the horse, or you're born in year of the rat, there are different characteristics. But
associated with
but
that.
the idea of Jyotish is not the whole year is the same kind of person, right? It's about the exact moment that you're born,
Yes,
right? So then the question is there? So where does that idea? Is that a Buddhist idea, or does it have
yes.
any sort of correlation to Jyotish?
No, it does not have any correlation to Jyotish. This is a different idea which is also found in many parts of Vedic and Hindu thinking, Utkarsh. Cast your mind back to the episodes we have done on music. And
Hmm.
when we did those episodes on music, we talked about certain sounds theoretically being codified as sounds which came from a certain animal in nature. And while
Hmm.
we were discussing that, we kind of thought about it. Does it really sound like that? It doesn't. So why are the two things connected? So what happens is that a theoretical construct is made of certain characteristics of an animal. And remember, it is very much a theoretical construct, and then
Hmm.
it is associated with other things, other features of human life. So it
Hmm.
may be here, it was associated with different directions, the people
Okay.
who lived in different
Okay.
directions, and
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
they must be taught the things that were associated with these particular animals.
Okay.
Very much a cultural construct.
Hmm.
Although the idea that the time you are born affects what you are is an idea of Jyotish. And remember, it went back to natural observations of tides, etc. So that's
Hmm.
a very, very Vedic and Hindu idea. It has
Hmm.
found expression in a different,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Okay.
you very clearly pointed out that the whole way in which it operates is different. For Jyotish, it's the instant you were born.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas here it's the entire year, and it is
Hmm.
associated with an animal, and certain characteristics are associated with that animal. Over there
Yeah.
in Jyotish, it's the characteristics of the sky at
Okay.
the time when you are born.
Hmm.
But the underlying idea of people's characteristics being affected by the time when they are born is
Hmm.
very much the same here, right?
Got it. So,
And
long
you
story
see,
short,
in
should you take it seriously? That whole year makes you something, or should you be more consistent with the serious
I
Jyotish practitioner?
from what I have studied, I would say that Jyotish is a far more serious science than this 12 years and 12 years.
This is like
But
that thing that you used to read when you were young. What you said, right? It was something you loved reading in the Jyotish episode who predicts your horoscope. Somebody.
Linda Goodman.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah,
I
Linda Goodman.
remember.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, absolutely. And hand the looking at your
Palmistry.
hand, palmistry, Kero. These
Hmm.
people were charlatans. They were total
Entertaining charlatans.
training charlatans. Now, the thing about so much of this is that it gives a certain structure to time. And it is the purpose of culture, society, and religion. Although we don't like the word religion, but to use it for lack of any other, it is the purpose of these things to give structure and meaning to the life of a human being. So, born in the year of the rat or the tiger or something, then there's a certain structure, theory, and a construct which you can follow. It may not actually work out exactly as theorized, but that's okay. That's okay. But I would
Okay.
not take it as seriously as Jyotish at all.
Got it. Okay. Very clear.
Now, there's one more question which I have not addressed as yet, and I will address it now. So, you were telling me that how did we get this approach critical mass? How come everyone adopted?
Yeah.
So, one, of course, was that Buddhism very, very, very strongly adopted in China. Starting from Mauryan and pre-Mauryan times, we have many stories of this, which are not at the moment fully historically verified as per Western understanding. But I think that in the East, we take stories more seriously. So there are many stories of the movement of Buddhism in China. Along with the movement of Buddhism went so many other things. What went there? A lot of math went there, for example. A lot of astronomy went there. For years, the beginning of the years is concerned with astronomy, I will talk to you about the actual movement of Indians to China to teach astronomy. So between the 7th and 10th century, there was a concerted movement of astronomers from Kashi, whole families and clans of astronomers moving to China to live over there
What was
and to
prompting this?
become demand. There was a demand from China. So they moved moved to the Chinese port and migrated with their families. And there were whole villages of these astronomers who were looked up and who were, who advised the court, who advised the important people. I will not give you a list of everyone who went and all the families. That will be very tedious. But I will tell you the name of one of the most important and famous one. He
Hmm.
was from Banaras, and his name was Gautam Siddha, and he was called Sitan Shida. Forgive my Chinese pronunciation, Utkarsh. I don't know whether yours is better, but still. Let me stop sharing this.
Hmm.
Okay. So Gautam Siddha, he did a number of translations and he advised a number of people. What was his most important thing was that he introduced zero to China. So in a 8th century manuscript, he was the one who introduced the concept of zero, which was called Bindu, to China. And after that, it was adopted by China and used to a very large extent. So this was somewhere around the 7th, 8th century. So you see that along those trade routes, which I keep hammering all the time, people who watch this podcast, I'm sure must have got it absolutely in their heads by now. The sea routes, the land route through via Dunhuang, all these were carriers of a lot of knowledge, cultural knowledge, formal knowledge, math, science, etc., everything, even medicinal knowledge, everything. So, India has been fertilizing Chinese culture for thousands of years. However, I find that the Chinese are extremely reluctant to accept this because they have a very poor opinion of Indians who they think knuckled under to the British and became colonial dupes. They have no respect for Indians and they would not like to accept that anything that they have has come from India. In fact, Utkarsh, say about, I would say even 20, 30 years ago, there was a very concerted move by China try and push that Buddhism actually was not from India but from China. So it has
Hmm.
only been in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, 20 years, maybe 25 years that they've given up this claim. Otherwise, they were trying to say that Buddhism is also from China. Now, look at the Chinese New Year celebrations this year. There have been many celebrations which have been based upon the Dunhuang paintings. They are like the Ajanta Ellora paintings. So there are lots of women dressed in the dress of that time, Uttariya, Antariya, etc. And Chinese women have dressed up like that and dance those dances which are Indian, Kathak, Bharatnatyam, etc. But absolutely no way will they give any credit to anything which is Indian. So I think not just the West, China is equally unwilling to give any credit to anything which has come from India. And that again we'll have to work on with
Hmm.
evidence, as I hope we have.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, very interesting. Um, so what else did I want to ask? So the link is very, very clear.
Yes,
I guess the particular way of celebrating it is very cultural linked to what was.
yes,
So
yes.
that may
It's
not that
very
I guess
cultural, but
yeah.
I feel, there are some things like community. What you said, family and community. Those are very Asian, Indic Asian values. And I was having a conversation with my Mongolian house help who said, the day we decided to do this episode, she asked me next day, can I take leave for Mongolian New Year? So that was quite a coincidence.
I
And
mean not a
she said,
coincidence, but yeah.
of course,
Just
coincidence
timely.
that we,
Timely.
yeah, so we decided to do the episode and I was researching this. And she told me a lot about Mongolian New Year. And
Hmm.
her son had come over from, he lives somewhere else outside Geneva, and her sister's family had come, and all the things that you said, she said too, that all of us will meet together, all of us will cook, and we will eat together. And Utkarsh, you are well aware that I have a Korean son-in-law, and my Korean son-in-law also informed me that yes, it is the year of the fire horse, and it is indeed Seulal, I think, which is the Korean New Year. Let me share a few of the things that I just picked up from the internet
Hmm.
about how people, yes, it is Yolal. So let's see if I can share it. Just a few visuals to make things more interesting, as
Hmm.
always. So can you see this is the Korean Lunar New Year? And
Hmm.
these are the kind of things that are made to eat. You spoke about people meeting,
Yeah.
people having dinner, eating together. This is what happens in Korea too.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now I will show you something else. It's just a problem, this is Chinese New Year. Is it how it is in Singapore also?
Well, yes, and but there's something particular that you have called lion dance. So there's not a tiger, sorry, there's not a dragon, there's a lion who's dancing. Hey, so we
Okay,
do have lions. We have lion dance, which is very big part of it.
okay,
So anyways, that's a separate thing.
yeah. So this was, and then I think I had a picture of a Mongolian one also. Let me see if I can find the Mongolian one
Mm-hmm.
because it's all this Mongolian. I think Zoom is a little bit painful when I try to share things. No, it's not going to allow me to share this. So I had better stop.
Okay, but you got the idea. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
interesting. Good. I
So
think I
this
have.
question that you raised, Utkarsh, the
Hmm,
other day on
hmm,
text, and then we decided to do this, has been a very learning experience for me too. I knew that the Chinese named their years and that it was an important thing for them.
hmm,
I
hmm,
didn't really know that it came from India.
hmm, hmm. Yeah.
So
No,
we
it's
are
very
learning
interesting, and
stuff.
things like the orbit of Jupiter, orbit of Saturn, all of that was also very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also Nag. We're going to talk about that, right? Nag and dragons.
We'll have an episode on dragons, definitely.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think it'll be interesting. The connections between Nag and dragon and
Hmm. Hmm.
breathing fire. Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. And the
Hmm.
directions, because we've spoken a lot in this podcast about timekeeping, but we have
Hmm.
not spoken about distances. We have not spoken about directions, although we have spoken about maps.
Hmm.
But distances and directions we have not spoken about. And there is such a very sophisticated theory of distances and directions also in the Vedic Hindu
Hmm.
system
Hmm.
that it's
Hmm.
worth looking
Yeah. Good. Interesting.
at. Yes.
Okay. Should we take it end it here? Any messages for the folks?
Messages for the folks, as always, please
Like,
subscribe, people.
subscribe, share.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we are very happy that the Iron and Steel episode has now become our most successful episode ever. Tash.
Hmm. Yeah.
It has become our most successful episode. So maybe we will follow up with Mercury, Zinc, who knows, gold.
Yeah.
We can actually, we can do one on metallurgy. Maybe harping on just one small metal or one metal like zinc may not be very
Hmm.
interesting, but metallurgy is
Hmm.
quite interesting. And then, even if it is brass or bronze and the things that were made from it and the processes which are carried out on it, all of them
Hmm.
interesting. So thank you very much, everyone, for liking that episode. Please like this one too. And belated happy Chinese, Mongolian, Korean, Vietnamese, Indonesian, Malaysian New Year to anyone who's listening.
Yes.
And
Wonderful.
the Hindu New Year is going to come, and Utkarsh, the Samvat is going to change. Vikram
Hmm.
Samvat is going to change. I think
Hmm.
we should also do one on Vikram Samvat.
Hmm. We should do that.
So this
Good.
was fun, and see you again next time. Namaskar.
Okay. Take care.